But you mentioned SmackDown, and we mentioned Sami Zayn, and he's been figured in over the past couple of weeks, and they put in the thing with Brock and Heyman and Reigns and etc. And this past Friday night, the big event happened. Finally, the tribal chief had enough of the wise man. And over the last couple of weeks, I mean, you know, I'll read this in a second, what they had on SmackDown, but over the last couple of weeks, it's a 2-hour television program, but if you just DVR it, and any time that Paul Heyman or Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar shows up, stop and watch, it's the best wrestling program on television. Problem is, it only lasts 14 fucking minutes tops. But, we didn't even talk about SmackDown last week, but the previous week they had a deal where fucking Heyman again was so good. It was just so good. But Sami Zayn was figured into the thing, right? Brock had previously suplexed him and dropped him on his head or whatever. And they had Zayn and Heyman in the ring doing a promo, and Brock came out and Heyman shits himself because we still don't know whose side he's on really down deep. And then Brock sat down and started talking to Sami, and it was kindly babyface Brock, which you can tell even just he was trying to force himself to smile, and that's difficult. And at first, as they were doing it, I was like, fuck me, now they're ruining Brock, right? They're having him sit down and talk to Sami, Canadian to Canadian. Hey, let's go to Saskatchewan and shoot some moose or whatever they're saying. And I thought, oh, there's this, they can't, they were ready. Brock and Sami are ready to walk out together and go have a beer or whatever. And I'm like, they can't do this. And just then, Heyman had the reaction that I was having. Wait a minute. What the fuck? And then he takes the microphone back and he pumps Brock Lesnar up. What is this? Saskatchewan besties going out to shoot a moose or whatever? You're the beast, and he fires Lesnar up verbally to where Brock picks Sami up and fucking gives him the deal again. And Heyman just, he's the hinge on all of this. He makes everything work because he's perfect at interacting with and being the glue that holds this whole thing together. So this week, he's there waiting for Reigns. And did you notice what we said last week? On one of the programs, there was a thread to what you were going to see through the whole thing. And that's what they were doing on Raw 20 years ago when everybody watched it. That's what they do. And whereas AEW's television programs, either segment by segment or piece by piece, if a match goes 2 segments, it's all self-contained. And then that's the end. And somebody said, oh, well, you can't do that. You can't have Punk or Danielson on the show 3 or 4 different times. Well, yes, you can. It doesn't mean they have to do a 10-minute interview or have a 17-minute match each time. They do it like this. At the start of SmackDown, Heyman standing there holding the title belt and waiting for Roman Reigns. And a little bit later on in the program, they check back and there comes the limo. But oh my God, it's Brock. And Heyman's surprised. He thought it was Reigns. And then later on, they have them preparing to go out, and then they have them go out. And then they do all their big business at the end of the show. But you knew from the start, something is going to happen with the only people that we really give a shit about here. Is that hard to understand? Brian, why are we trying to have to explain this like it's fucking Chinese arithmetic?
That opening video showing everything from last week with Heyman and Sami Zayn and Brock Lesnar was so good. And it got me really into it. It was just such a well done video. And then I immediately pressed fast forward. And I pressed fast forward until I got to Heyman backstage.
Well, let's tell the people before we go on any further. You see Heyman waiting for Roman Reigns' limousine at the top of the program after that video package that you just talked about. And so now we know shit's going to go on and holy, they've hooked us. And then we got a girls tag team match that didn't finish up until 30 minutes into the program.